Mr. Speaker, Liberals and Conservatives tell Canadians that they're looking out for them. But we've seen countless times that that's only true if it doesn't cut into the profits of their corporate friends. By supporting this motion, they can show that they are ready to live up to their promises to Canadians. Today, they can help make sure that companies who have been squeezing Canadians at the pumps or at the grocery store are supporting the public services people need.
The member will have about 6 minutes left when we come back after orders of the day. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, on March 20th, my family and I joined all who celebrate the joyous occasion of Nowruz, also known as Persian New Year, in gathering around our HoC table. As we mark the beginning of the spring by basking in the fresh smell of sabze and sombol, the sweet aroma of samanu, and enjoying the delicious traditional meal of sabzi pulao and mahi, I began to reflect on how far we've come since Nowruz 2020. Since then, we've continued to stand against the darkness brought by COVID-19 and other challenges. And despite of current global threats, we have to continue to try to welcome the light. To my fellow Persians, as all cultural communities to celebrate Nowruz in Richmond Hill, in Canada, and across the globe, I wish you a happy, healthy, peaceful, and prosperous New Year. برآمد باد صبح و بوی نوروز به کام دوستان و بخت پیروز مبارک باد این سال و همه سال همایون باد این روز و همه روز هر روزتان نوروز نوروزتان پیروز.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, it's the first day of spring, a fitting day to mark as International Day of Forests. Forests sustain our lives in many ways. Around the world, 1.6 billion people depend directly on forests for food, shelter, energy, medicines, and income. Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke is home to Algonquin Park, while a group of 7, artists Tom Thompson and A.Y. Jackson, have immortalized the beauty of the park trees. We now have wild women, painters of the wilderness, Kathy Haycock, Joyce Burkholder, and Linda Sorensen, keeping our forests healthy are families of loggers like the Blaskys, Pekarskys, and Enrights. Sawmill families, including the Bells, Gulicks, Hokums, Heidemans, McRae's, Passways, and Shaws, have given local residents a place to work for generations. Pembroke MDF makes forestry residuals into cupboards and generates electricity. The rolling hills of the Upper Ottawa Valley peak in brilliance in the fall. Whenever your travels bring you to our forest, the people of the valley will welcome you.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, every year in March we celebrate women's contribution to making Canada and the world better. For International Women's Day this year, I had the opportunity to join a panel at Brampton City Hall with Sergeant Joy Brown from the Peel Police and Tricia Sampson from the Elizabeth Fry Society for a special panel where we discussed how to uplift women and break down the barriers they face. Our government is working to reduce violence against women as well as other initiatives to help women, like expanding affordable childcare, pay equity, GBA+, decision making. The theme this year is Women Inspiring Women. And every day I'm proud of my mother and my twin daughters who are my personal inspirations. I'm also proud of all the strong women in Brampton and Canada who break down barriers for women everywhere. Advancing equality at home and around the world. When women and girls succeed, we all do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, the International Day of la Francophonie, created in 1988 by the International Organization of la Francophonie, allows 88 OIF member states to celebrate their shared heritage, the French language. In Trois-Rivières, we've celebrated la Francophonie for the last 10 years, thanks to the hard work and dedication of the members of the Committee for the International Day of la Francophonie. A dozen organizations from the education, post-secondary education, culture, and community sectors are part of this committee. And every year they organize over 20 activities. These include a dictation test, conferences, a gala, a poetry night, presentations from authors in schools, and an international French language theatre festival. This year, activities are planned for March 17th to 27th under the theme Pride in the Heart of La Francophonie. I would like to personally invite everyone to Trois-Rivières to participate in this year's activities. In closing, please allow me to congratulate the chair of the committee, Mr. Sylvain Benoit of UQTR, as well as all the members of the committee for their unwavering support for La Francophonie. Happy Week of La Francophonie to all. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, this week, over 300 million people around the world will celebrate Nowruz,
which means New Day, celebrates the Persian New Year and the arrival of spring. During this time, friends and family sit around the half-seen table and exchange gifts, share food, and reflect on the year that has been and the year to come. Without a doubt, the past 2 years have been quite challenging, but Nowruz and spring present a beautiful time for renewal and new beginnings. Nowruz also gives us an opportunity to mark the contributions of communities that celebrate this day, be it Persians, Afghans, or Kurdish communities, be it Ismaili, Baha'i, or Zoroastrian, be it through the Iranian Cultural Society of West Island, or appreciating the Afghan cuisine of Ariana Restaurant on Boulevard des Sources in Pierrefonds. We thank you for your contributions to our community and celebrate them. To all marking Nowruz in Pierrefonds-Dollard and beyond, I wish you a happy Nowruz and brighter days ahead. Thank you. Merci.
Order, just a reminder, I know everybody's really happy to see each other after being away for a couple of weeks, but we are getting a little noisy, so we want to hear these great statements. The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine is being fueled by European dependence on Russian energy. As Europe and much of the world searches for alternatives, Canada should be part of the solution. The only thing standing in the way is this Liberal government and its war on Canadian energy, cancelling pipelines, killing LNG projects, driving away hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. So disastrous is this Liberal government's record that last year Canada imported $400 million of Russian oil. $400 million to fuel Putin's war machine. As a result of the Liberals' war on Canadian energy, Canada is weaker, Putin is stronger, and the world is less safe.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, March 21st, marks World Down Syndrome Day. This day was created to raise public awareness, promote inclusivity, encourage advocacy, and support the well-being of those living with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome have an inherent right to be accepted and included as valued and equal members of our communities. This date was chosen because it is the 21st day of the third month, which signifies the uniqueness of the triplication of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize organizations in my riding of Sudbury, like the Down Syndrome Association of Sudbury, L'Arche Sudbury, Christian Horizons, and Community Living Greater Sudbury, who work extensively to amplify the voices and empower individuals living with Down syndrome. Together, we can work to create inclusive communities around the world that welcome and support individuals with Down syndrome. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, on Canada's prairies they are known as kokum scarves. In the Yukon, we call them granny scarves. In a tribute to the historic friendship between First Peoples and early Ukrainian settlers, Indigenous men and women across Canada are wearing these colourful scarves to show support for Ukrainians devastated by this war. The Yukon boasts the fourth largest per capita population of Ukrainian Canadians. When Yukon First Nations leaders met recently with representatives of the Ukrainian community to offer their support, they were presented with symbolic granny scarves. In a time when First Nations in Yukon are themselves responding to the simultaneous tragedies of the opioid crisis, residential school trauma, and the pandemic, they are nevertheless coming forward to show support for Ukraine. Putin's war in Ukraine has surely broken the hearts of all Canadians, but we can take solace in these stories of support and solidarity. As Yukoners open their hearts and homes and pledge their support for Ukrainians, our Indigenous communities are once again lighting the way to peace and reconciliation. Slava Ukraini!
The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to wish Canadians of Kurdish, Persian, and Central Asian heritage a very happy Nowruz, as this week marks the start of their New Year. Nowruz is an ancient New Year celebration adopted by many Central Asian peoples. For Kurds, this New Year will be 2722, and the word Nowruz literally means a new year, marking the first day of spring. It is celebrated through a variety of traditions, and the Kurds gather in the countryside to light bonfires, which represent the passing from the darkness from the previous year into the light of the next. Fire is considered a symbol of triumph in Kurdish mythology. In Kurdistan, Kurds will light fires, fireworks, and will be heading to the mountains of Akre, considered the home of the celebration of Nowruz. Persians set the HoC table and exchange gifts, and other Central Asians also celebrate by planting trees and attending festivities marking the same occasion. On the 13th day after Nowruz, Kurds will go out for a picnic called Siyaz Dababar, celebrated in the New Year with family and friends. To all of my Kurdish friends in Canada, I wish them Nowruz, Piruz, Bet.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians should be able to live a true and authentic life, free from violence and discrimination, no matter who they are, where they live, or how they appear. Today is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. We know that the elimination of racial discrimination is not confined to 24 hours on March 21st, but is required 24/7, 365 days a year. Nelson Mandela shared the following truth many years ago, which I'd like to highlight today. No one is born hating another person because of the color of their skin, their background, or their religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Let us keep raising our voices, bringing down the towers of oppression, and keep doing the right thing for generations of the past, present, and future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Leonard Joseph Gustafson, former member of Parliament, Parliamentary Secretary to Prime Minister Mulroney, and Senator who passed away last Friday. Len was born in and loved Macomb, Saskatchewan, and throughout his life he was many things, including a contractor, businessman, MP, senator, and most importantly, a farmer. The great orator Paul Harvey must have been thinking of Len when he wrote his famous speech, "So God Made a Farmer." And one quote is, "I need someone who at planting time and harvest season will finish the 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then paying in from tractor back will put on in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer." Our thoughts and prayers are with Len's loving wife, Alice, their children, Terry, Jerry, Ben, Bonagine, their spouses, and their many grandchildren. Len is now with his son, Jerry, looking down on all of us and sending their blessings for a bountiful harvest season. Thank you, Len, for your service to the people of Souris Moose Mountain and to Canada. Your legacy will not be forgotten.
The honourable member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the end of mask mandates in Ontario and Nova Scotia. Quebec has already ended their vaccine passport requirements. As of March, PEI no longer requires proof of vaccination. Saskatchewan hasn't had vaccine mandates since February 14th, the same day that New Brunswick ended all COVID-19 restrictions, and Alberta ended their mandates back on February 8th. Mr. Speaker, across the country, provinces are following the science and they are removing their restrictions. This government must follow suit. Vaccine mandates have cost Canadians their jobs, it has restricted travel, and it is hurting our tourism sector here at home, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have done their part to fight COVID-19. They've done their part to get through this pandemic, and it's time that they get their lives back. The federal government must put an end to all pandemic restrictions that are in their jurisdiction.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great pleasure for me to rise today to join other colleagues in wishing everyone who celebrated Nowruz a Happy New Year. Yesterday, thousands of residents in my riding of Willowdale, and indeed hundreds of thousands of Canadians, joined 300 million individuals around the world to usher in Nowruz. A 3,000-year tradition, Nowruz is a festive holiday celebrated by Persians, Afghans, Turks, Kurds, Baha'is, Ismailis, Zoroastrians, and many more communities. It was a pleasure for me to join others around the half-scene table to mark the spring equinox and the promise of new beginnings. Nowruz celebrates renewal, optimism, and light, all essential qualities that are necessary at a time like this. May this festival of renewal bring hope to a world that needs it like never before by ushering a new year free from hardship, the pandemic, and war. To everyone celebrating, Har Rozatun Nowruz, Nowruzatun Piruz. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today I join all New Democrats in marking the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. As a Métis person, I know firsthand the tolerant image that Canada projects on the world stage can hide ugly realities, racism, and discrimination. Too often, this shiny image doesn't match the reality that Indigenous peoples, Black Canadians, Asian Canadians, Muslim Canadians, and other racialized people in my riding of Edmonton-Griesbach and across the country face every single day. Canada must wake up to the reality that we have a serious and growing problem with white supremacy and hatred. We saw another reminder of how serious this problem is just days ago when a Mississauga mosque was violently attacked in an act of Islamophobic hate. Words of solidarity and symbolic gestures are not enough to stop the ongoing violence and dismantle the systemic racism that continues to thrive in Canada today. We need real solutions. Canada's come tinawau, Mr. Speaker.
I do want to remind everyone we're almost to QP, and I know that's what everybody's waiting for, but we are getting a little noisy, so I just want to make sure we listen to these great statements that we've been having.
The honourable member for Salaberry-Surwa. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec this week we are celebrating the incredible and professional work done by social workers. Social workers support people above all else. They facilitate access to basic social services. They amplify the voices of the most vulnerable and the forgotten members of our society. They innovate, they get things done, and they fundamentally improve our society. They are actors of change. Social work shows its true colors in autonomous community organizations who work miracles every day. We see the true colors of social work when one of our neighbors takes a new step towards reaching their full potential. We see the true colors of social work in the 15,500 social workers who lead, organize, and participate in the development of their communities. Every day, these professionals are leading us towards a more welcoming, a more respectful, and a more just society. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to be a social worker. Honourable colleagues, happy Social Worker Week.
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
On November 25th, 2021 at 12 noon, a white Ford F-350 pulled up to a small RCMP detachment in my community of Vanderhoof, British Columbia. Seconds later, the driver started shooting, narrowly missing the officers and civilians inside. He circled the building and continued shooting. Minutes felt like hours. Leaving behind rammed and bullet-ridden vehicles, the suspect fled into the community. Mr. Speaker, it's a miracle that no one was injured or killed. For the first time, the BC Emergency Alert System was activated, and the community was locked down within minutes. Simply put, the suspect was hunting police officers. He fired over 20 rounds alone into the detachment. Within an hour, the suspect was taken down without incident. When asked to recount the events of this day, many of the officers' voices still crack with emotion. Mr. Speaker, they're still hurting. One shared with me that he thought this was the day that he was going to die. On behalf of the residents of Caribou Prince George and all Canadians, I'd like to express our appreciation and our gratitude. Mr. Speaker, these brave men and women put the safety of their community above their own. They ran towards danger. They ran towards gunfire. They are somebody's mother, daughter, sister, father, brother. Mr. Speaker, they're true heroes, and I ask that all my colleagues join me in saying a heartfelt thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank all of the Francophones and Francophiles who yesterday celebrated the International Day of la Francophonie. We also need to thank the pioneers and the builders who worked hard and fought across Canada to ensure that we can all receive services in both French and English in every part of the country. The Francophonie should be celebrated as it represents both cultural and economic wealth for Canada. It's vitally important that we support our community organizations and that we promote language learning starting in preschool and continuing through post-secondary education from coast to coast to coast. Thank you to all of the private sector businesses who are proud to promote the French language and who work hard to offer bilingual service to their clients. Let us celebrate each and every day that which unites us, our culture, our community, and our pride. And may we continue to show compassion for our neighbors and be proud of our diversity. Thank you.
Questions orales, oral questions. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable.
Monsieur le Président, les chemins de fer sont au cœur.
Mr. Speaker, railways are at the heart of our economy, but Canadians are having an increasingly difficult time to get essential goods. This labor conflict could not come at a worse moment. Every day, farmers, businesses, and millions of Canadians are being affected by this labor conflict. And this could easily have been predicted. What is the Liberals' plan to prevent the supply chain from being disrupted and businesses from closing? The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Mr.
Speaker, negotiations always involve difficulties, but we must overcome them. The two sides of the negotiation will be continuing to work today. They are working hard. No one has left the table. They are all aware of what is at stake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, 2 years after a pandemic that has scarred our supply chains, that has increased prices throughout the economy, I am very disappointed by this government's nonchalance. No one should be surprised about this work stoppage. And yet again, this Prime Minister is slow to react. Things will get much worse if a solution is not found quickly. Can this Prime Minister commit today to finding a solution to this conflict? The Honourable Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, the best agreements are reached when everyone is at the table. We have confidence in the parties to reach a solution that they negotiate together. Canadians are counting on a rapid resolution to this situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, it sounds like the government is washing its hands of the situation. I don't really understand what the minister is saying. While the parties are negotiating, Canadians are paying a high price. Inflation has reached high levels. Houses aren't affordable. This situation is causing Canadians to make difficult choices. And things are only going to get worse. We have a proposal for the government to immediately reduce the burden on Canadians. Would this government agree that gas and diesel GST should immediately be removed? The Honourable Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, the parties are still negotiating. No one has left the table. We believe that the parties will be able to reach an agreement around the table. This government believes that the best agreements are reached by the parties since they know the issues. And Canadians are counting on them to reach an agreement as quickly as possible. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when I previously asked the Minister of Transport what he was doing to prevent a CP rail strike, he said, let me assure my colleague, we're monitoring the situation. I've met the CEO, I've met with the Teamsters. It's really important that we maintain the fluidity of our supply chain. Well, the strike is on and damage is already happening. The agricultural sector is already seeing it. The automotive sector has said they can't they can't endure another hit. And the Chamber of Commerce is calling for back-to-work legislation on behalf of small businesses. So what is the government's plan to immediately resolve this dispute?
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Mr. Speaker, notice of a work stoppage couldn't have come at a worse time. Every day that goes by for farmers and for manufacturers in this country particularly is an hour or a day too long. And I think that the parties at the table know that. They have an enormous responsibility to all Canadians to negotiate an agreement that protects supply chains that Canadians depend on. They are working hard. No one has left the table. Our party believes that the best deals are reached at the table. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, those are empty words because the government's record is being slow to act in these situations. With the Wet'suwet'en and the coastal gas rail blockades, it took weeks for the federal government to intervene. With the Port of Montreal, over a week. 4,500 rail cars a day and nearly $500 million of goods getting to market are in jeopardy every day. Canadians can't afford more inflation. 8 out of 9 of the previous CP disputes went to binding arbitration. So what will the government do to immediately address this situation?
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Mr. Speaker, I would acknowledge, Canada's supply chains are still reeling from the BC floods, from COVID-19, and now a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Canadians' best interests need to be prioritized. I am here in Calgary. I am urging the parties to reach an agreement. Our government is committed to ensuring the reliability and the efficacy of our supply chains that support Canada's economy right across all sectors. Canadians have worked together throughout this pandemic to find solutions to our collective challenges, and they expect the same from stakeholders in our national economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the government has implemented an emergency travel authorization for Ukraine war refugees, and it can count on our party's support. But also 2 weeks ago, we proposed that the government charter additional flights for these people. As we speak, refugees are getting into the program, they're filling out paperwork, and then at the end of the process, no one is going to get them. When exactly will Ukrainian refugees be able to take federally chartered flights? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for his question, and I'd like to thank him for his collaborative spirit on the issue of Ukraine. We are prioritizing Ukrainian applications. Since January, many Ukrainians have arrived in Canada, and last week I announced measures that will enable Ukrainians to enter Canada more easily and quickly, as well as safely. I will continue to work closely with my colleagues to facilitate the arrival of the most possible Ukrainians to Canada. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we're talking 3.5 million refugees, women, children, seniors, and the number is increasing every day. And Canada is the second biggest Ukrainian diaspora in the world. So there may be a lot of people who want to come here, and the government is going to need a lot of flights. Imagine Ukrainian families who have all their paperwork filled out, and yet because there's no transportation, they will be stuck in refugee camps. It's not humane, and I do not believe that the minister's answer is satisfactory. We need the federal government to charter flights. When? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, since January, Canada has welcomed more than 10,000 Ukrainians. We are working closely with all stakeholders, the Ukrainian Canadian community, the provinces and territories, and the business sector, among others, to support people arriving from Ukraine.
To arrange the best way for people to get here as quickly as possible, regardless of what it takes. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the measures we put forward. I'm going to continue to work to get as many people here as quickly as possible.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's happening at CP is a lockout, and the minister should be concerned to know why a company in the supply chain is locking out its employees in the current circumstances. Le coût de l'essence, de l'épicerie et du logement continue.
Gas, housing, and grocery prices are skyrocketing, and families are having trouble making ends meet. But big companies and big box stores are raking in the profits. Inequality is reaching historic levels. What will the Liberals do to make life more affordable by making the most wealthy Canadians pay their fair share? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite is talking about is affordability, and we reduced taxes on the middle class twice. We increased taxes for the wealthiest 1%, but the NDP voted against. We created the Canada Child Benefit indexed with inflation, and they voted against. On this side of the House, we are here to help Canadians with affordability, and we will continue to do so.
River Churchill, Kuwadanook-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians reeling from the pandemic are having a hard time making ends meet. Groceries, transportation, housing, corporate profits, and CEO bonuses. Everything is increasing. Everything but income and pensions. Canadians are frustrated with this rigged economy. The rich are getting richer, and Canadians are paying the price. The NDP has a solution. Tax the rich, tax the banks, and use that money to offer relief to Canadians. Will the government continue to stand with wealthy CEOs, or will they finally take action in support of Canadians who are struggling right now?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable colleague for her question. Our government remains committed to this platform initiative. Now, as it pertains to affordability, it is disappointing that the NDP chose to vote against providing more pandemic supports for Canadians and businesses in Bill C-2. Raising taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowering them for the middle class, increasing investments for the Canada Revenue Agency to combat tax evasions, and investments to combat international tax avoidance. We invite the opposition NDP to vote with us on C-8.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, ever since this finance minister took charge, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Inflation is at a 30-year high. We know Canadians are struggling to balance their own budgets. Paychecks don't go as far as they used to. The cost of everything is out of control. Gas, groceries, housing, yet the minister doesn't seem to care. Things are not getting better for Canadians. They're getting worse. When will this minister tell Canadians how she plans to fight inflation, and when will she table her next budget?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, since the honourable member across has raised the issue of affordability, let's review what we've done since taking office. We lowered taxes for the middle class twice and raised them on the wealthiest 1%, and Conservatives voted against. We created the CCB index to inflation. Conservatives voted.
Order. I'll just have to give it a minute and wait for everybody to... I know it's been a while. I know we haven't seen each other in a while. We haven't had a chance to heckle in a while. The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance on a quick answer.
Mr. Speaker, we provided seniors over 75 years of age a one-time payment of $500, and guess what? The Conservatives voted against. We're focused on affordability, and that's what we will continue to do, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the question was for the Finance Minister. Inflation is raging across our country, and Canadians are being left behind. The cost of everything is skyrocketing. I mentioned gas, I mentioned groceries, the price of home heating. Worse yet, millions of Canadians have lost their dream of home ownership as house prices spiral out of control. Yet the minister doesn't seem to care. When will she finally tell Canadians what she plans to do about the affordability crisis, and when will she table a budget?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it is an honour and a privilege for me to share with the member opposite exactly what we are doing and will continue to do on housing. $72 billion invested in the National Housing Strategy. $2.5 billion invested in the Rapid Housing Initiative. Mr. Speaker, investments in every corner of this country, in every riding, even the noisy ones, to make sure that housing is a right for everyone. We will continue to focus on Canadians while they're focusing on raising the temperature.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, a few weeks back, I raised and alerted this House that the average home price in Canada had hit $720,000. Notice today, Mr. Speaker, $868,000. One reminder, Mr. Speaker, of what the house price was when this Prime Minister came into office? $434,000. So, Mr. Speaker, they officially did it. It took them 6 years, but they have doubled the average home price here in Canada. So, the Minister, how can he continue to ignore these numbers?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
We remain
to the important issue of housing affordability in Canada. And we have proposed solutions such as a new housing accelerator fund to speed up both the supply and the speed of home construction in Canada, a new rent-to-own program to help renters become home buyers, as well as a temporary ban on foreign buyers of non-recreational residential property. But you know, Mr. Speaker, we moved to implement a 1% tax on non-resident, non-Canadian owned real estate, and the Conservatives voted against it.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, all the programs that Minister just spoke of fall under the CMHC. Now, the CMHC is a government agency that, according to its website, is driven by one goal: housing affordability for all. Yet, newly revealed documents show that CMHC employees received $48 million in bonuses in the last year. Mr. Speaker, the average home price went up 21% in the last year. How can this minister award the CMHC bonuses when Canadians can't afford to buy a home?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member knows that no minister in my position has or will ever make decisions in terms of an independent Crown Corporation's employee compensation system. CMHC, like every Crown Corporation in Canada, is independent of political interference when it comes to the hiring and salaries of its employees.
I was going to say, I've got the volume cranked on the chair, and I'm not really hearing the answers. So I want to make sure I can hear the questions and the answers. So just try to keep the volume down just a little, just a little. I have the headset ready to go. The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, so many Canadians are struggling to find an affordable place to rent, let alone purchase a home. Why? Well, home prices have doubled since Liberals took office and up 43% since 2015 or 2019 alone. Over the past 2 years, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which reports to the Minister of Housing, has given out $48 million in bonuses. $48 million. Did the minister personally sign off on these bonuses, or is he simply going to try and pass the blame onto someone else?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
The Honourable Member knows very well that no minister in my position has or will ever interfere in an independent Crown Corporation's decisions when it comes to employment and salaries. We're focused on federal investments in housing, making sure that more Canadians than ever before have a safe and affordable place to call home. And in British Columbia, where the member's riding is from, we have invested over $5.8 billion in affordable housing investments, and these investments have helped over 128,000 families. This includes $34.5 million in 120 new units in West Kelowna in the members' room.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, this minister is supposed to be the Minister for Housing, not the Minister for Show Me the Money. So what performance metrics could possibly justify doling out $48 million, an average of more than $12,000 per employee, to over 93% of the employees during an affordable housing crisis? Will the minister show some spine, cancel these bonuses, or will he do what he always does, Mr. Speaker, and just blame the opposition for what happens on his watch?
Honourable Minister Logement.
The Honourable Member knows very well that no minister has or will ever interfere in the salaries and compensation of employees of an independent Crown agency. We are focused on providing affordable housing solutions for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And every single time that we've brought more federal investments to the table, the member opposite has voted against them. So they're not serious about affordable housing. How do I know that? The Opposition Day motion didn't have the name affordable housing in it. The election platform didn't have affordable housing in it. They're not serious about this issue, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Avignon-la-Métis.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis, Madame Matapadia. Mr. Speaker, Montreal is reeling from a brutal weekend. There were 5 armed assaults in less than 48 hours. This is a sad reminder of the wave of violence that has been afflicting our city and that things didn't settle down while we were concentrated on other issues. Montreal is still facing conflicts between criminal groups, and that has just been getting worse for 3 years. But the government doesn't seem to care. We've been talking about it for months, and nothing is changing on the ground. What is this minister doing concretely to do something about the gang war in the region of Montreal?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is firmly committed to building safer communities. To reduce gun crime, we must address social conditions that lead youth to join gangs. We're working closely with municipalities and Indigenous communities to provide $250 million over 5 years to bolster gang prevention and intervention programming. By investing in community program, we will stop the cycle of gun and gang violence and prevent youth from enduring a life of crime. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Matapetia. Mr. Speaker, that's all very well, but it's not enough. The scourge of gang warfare is affecting the entire metropolitan region. In Laval, firearms violence has more than doubled over the last 3 years. But the tap hasn't been turned off, and illegal firearms are still entering the country, and the federal government is not taking serious action. This is a crisis. People feel less and less safe in their streets. A quick solution would be to cut off access to weapons. What is the Minister of Public Safety waiting for?
L'honorable Secrétaire parlementaire du ministre de la Sécurité publique.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we absolutely take this crisis seriously. And we know that there are many, many prongs in solving the issue of guns and gangs. And that's why just last week, the Minister of Public Safety was in Quebec and was speaking with organizations and announced funding for communities, for municipalities, for Indigenous groups to deal with the scourge of guns and gangs.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Matapetia. Mr. Speaker, that's just not enough. Every time there's a shooting, we have questions, and each time the minister tells us that he has taken action or that he will take action, but we don't see anything concrete happen. There are just words, and the situation is getting worse. It can't go on like this. Montreal and the government of Quebec are both telling us that the federal government is not doing enough. When will the minister finally bring all resources to bear and find a solution to cut off access to illegal firearms?
Secrétaire parlementaire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we know that protecting communities from gun violence requires a comprehensive and effective strategy to protect communities, not just in Montreal, but across the country. And our position is clear. One of those actions we've taken is we have said assault-style firearms have no place in Canada, and through a mandatory buyback program, we will remove the threat these deadly firearms pose for our communities from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, skyrocketing oil prices are hitting Canadian families hard. Meanwhile, the Liberal government is doing absolutely nothing. It almost seems that they like it this way because that means there's more money in their coffers and they can continue to do what they do best. Spend, spend, and spend. Meanwhile, Canadians are wondering how they will manage to pay for their housing and how they will feed their children. When will this government finally table concrete measures to help Canadian families? Mr. Speaker, we recognize that Canadians are facing skyrocketing prices. But the opposition would like to make us believe that this is a consequence of the Canadian economy. What they don't seem to understand is that global prices are going up, in part because of the serious situation in Ukraine. It is very likely that prices at the pump will rise. And on this side of the House, we care about affordability, and we would invite the Conservatives to join us and vote for C8.
For Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament come to this House to represent their communities and offer common sense solutions on issues. Conservatives proposed a GST tax holiday on gasoline and diesel, something that would help my constituents in Kelowna Lake Country who are being hammered by gas prices as high as $214.5 this month. The Liberals are dismissing solutions. If the ministers are so out of touch with the prices that Canadians are paying at the pump, Will they ask their drivers what they're paying as they escort them around?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for a question, and we recognize that Canadians are experiencing increased prices at the gas pumps. The Conservative Party would have Canadians believe that this is a consequence entirely of the Canadian economy. What the Conservatives seem to leave out is that the rise in energy prices is due in great part to the tragic circumstances underway in Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, even if we implemented what the Conservatives are peddling, there's no guarantee that Canadians would see a reduction of prices at the pump. On this side of the House, we create long-term solutions. On that side, they continue to peddle political games.
The Honourable Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, the cost of gas has reached record highs. I know the Prime Minister has never made a living in rural Canada, but rural Canadians need to fill up their gas tanks to live their lives. They can't take the subway to work. They can't walk their kids to hockey. They can't take the bus to town. I think Canadians deserve a break, Mr. Speaker. So will the Prime Minister reduce the cost of fuel by removing the GST from gas and diesel?
Hear, hear. Good question. The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives continue to talk down the Canadian economy and spin economic fiction. So let's talk about some facts. Mr. Speaker, fact. Last week, Statistics Canada showed that our annualized growth is 6.7%. Fact, our economy is the second fastest growing in the G7. Fact, despite Omicron, our GDP, debt to GDP ratio is the lowest in the G7.
Order! Sometimes you just get to a point where I just can't hear a thing. I know everybody's excited to see each other. We're excited to hear the minister's answer. I'm sure the government's excited to hear the questions that we're going to be answering. So, can we just sort of keep the temperature down just a little bit? Enjoy what's left of question period. Let the minister answer the question. The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the third of many facts that I'll share in this answer is at $2.5 trillion, our economy is exactly the same size it was before the pandemic. We are on track, and we will continue to fight COVID inflation on behalf of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to see improved passenger rail, but many were shocked to hear the Liberals want to privatize service between Toronto and Quebec City. If the Liberals hand over their new rail project to a private corporation, it's ordinary passengers who will pay while wealthy investors profit. Ottawa's disastrous experience with LRT shows the risk of handing transit over to private companies. Will the minister guarantee that passenger rail on the Quebec-Windsor corridor will remain publicly operated?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for giving me the opportunity to stand here today and talk about the great news that I helped announce just last week. Our government is committed to moving forward with the investment in the high-frequency rail along the busiest corridor in Canada, where 95% of VIA passengers use the train to commute between Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, and stops in between. This is great news for VIA Rail, this is great news for Canadian travellers, and this is great news for public transportation, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Canadians are faced with a housing crisis, yet under the Liberals' rental construction program, affordable housing often ends up being 30 to 120% above the average market rent. It's scandalous. Nearly half of the housing the Liberals promise is expected to come from this program. 90% of the funding has gone to for-profit developers. Canadians deserve better. Will the government change the requirements to ensure housing built under this program is substantially below market rent?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for her important question. The National Housing Strategy has a number of important programs, including the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. It is important to assess each program based on the needs of Canadians in different parts of the housing spectrum. The particular program the Honourable Member mentions has actually conditions with respect to accessibility, energy efficiency, and minimum affordability requirements. It has led to the construction of tens of thousands of new affordable rental housing across the country, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
2 years have been hard on main streets across Atlantic Canada. Due to COVID, our community hubs have been forced to close or open reduced hours. These closures have been especially hard on businesses in the arts and tourism sectors. Could the minister responsible for HoC tell this House what the government is doing for Atlantic Canada's main streets as pandemic restrictions start to ease?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take a moment to thank my friend and colleague from Halifax West for her excellent question. As Atlantic Canada's Main Street reopens, our government will be there to help them and to help locals and tourists discover the incredible things that they have to offer. Last week, I was honored to announce the Rediscover Main Street program, which is investing $10 million in helping these resilient businesses show off their amazing products, their services, and experience. We've been there for Atlantic Canadian businesses since the pandemic started, and we will be there with them to ensure that they become vibrant entities again. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, after several attempts, the Liberals finally accepted to send lethal weapons to Ukraine. They sent 4,500 rocket launchers, 7,500 grenades, 100 anti-tank weapons, and 2,000 rounds. This morning, the Minister of Foreign Affairs confirmed that all the weapons had been delivered to Ukraine. My question is simple. Were all Canadian weapons destined for Ukraine delivered, or were they forgotten somewhere at the airport?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are leaving no stone unturned to support our Ukrainian friends. We have announced 6 tranches of military aid, both lethal and non-lethal, to Ukraine in February alone. This represents well over $100 million in military aid to Ukraine, and we are working tirelessly with our allies to deliver this aid. The Minister continues to be in close contact with both her Ukrainian counterpart and with NATO allies to see how best Canada and the alliance can continue supporting Ukraine, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, that's not an answer. We want to know if the weapons that were sent actually got to the battlefield. And what happened to all this weaponry? What the Minister of Foreign Affairs said this morning is unclear. My question is simple. Are these weapons on the battlefield right now, yes or no?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are working as quickly as possible to deliver new tranches of aid to Ukraine. Last month, nearly $10 million worth of lethal aid was delivered in full, Mr. Speaker. We are working around the clock to get more aid to Ukraine as quickly as possible alongside our NATO allies. Mr. Speaker, given the nature of this conflict, we will not be providing details about transit. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Minister of Global Affairs told CTV that, quote, Canada is not a nuclear power, it's not a military power, we're a middle-sized power, and what we're good at is convening and making sure that diplomacy is happening. And in so doing, insulted every Canadian who has gone to war for this country or put on its uniform. It is not the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces that are not ready to do their job. It's this minister and this government that are incapable of doing theirs. Will the minister apologize to this country's veterans?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to be very clear about this. Every single member on this side of the House not only supports the men and women in uniform today, but those who were in the men in uniform yesterday. And while we are not a superpower, let me tell you what we do. Our men and women in uniform have supported the people of Afghanistan. We've supported the people of Syria. And most recently, we have been on the ground and supported the troops in Ukraine with training that has trained 30,000 military personnel. We will continue to be there, and that's what Canada does well.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, 11 years after Afghanistan and 158 lives lost, the minister thinks we're conveners, not warriors. I have news for the minister, who should take a look at our Canadian history. The victors of Vimy Ridge, the 100 Days, Juno Beach, Kapyong, and Medusa deserve our admiration and our praise, but are forgotten by this government. Will the minister apologize for her hurtful remarks to the military, to veterans, and to the families of our fallen?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk even a little more recent history. The previous Conservative government dropped defense spending to the lowest level in 60 years. What this government...
I don't have to yell or anything. I just have to sit here and wait for it to get to a point where I can hear the member. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I will repeat that. What the previous Conservative government did was drop defense spending to the lowest level in the last 60 years. What this government is doing is recommitting to the armed forces to ensure that they are appropriately equipped, that they will be engaged appropriately, and they will continue to represent Canada and Canadian interests.
I'm hearing lots of yelling from the back row. You don't have to yell quite as loud to be heard in this chamber. So I'm just looking over, saying, calm it down, calm it down. All right, thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, the Minister must realize how urgent it is to resolve the lockout at Canadian Pacific. The Bloc wants a quick and negotiated resolution to the conflict. But all we see is that there is an impasse despite the talks. And we also see that with the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, supply chains are under unprecedented pressure. Will the Minister himself sit down with both sides and signal that he is making conflict resolution his personal agenda? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Supply chains in Canada are still being heavily affected by the floods in BC and also by the Russian invasion in Ukraine. CP talks have to be our priority, and I would exhort both parties to reach an agreement. We have worked together throughout the pandemic to find solutions as Canadians to our collective challenges, and we expect the same thing with our national economy and those who are involved in it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Obviously, the Minister did not understand my question. Unfortunately, there is a strong tendency for this government when it deals with crises. Too often, it watches them go by. It minimizes its role. It lets things get out of hand. Today, the Minister can break this pattern. He has said that he will stay in Calgary until both sides reach an agreement. That's the right attitude. But will he go really all the way and personally intervene to bring about a negotiated solution at CP Rail? The Honourable Minister.
And I will answer in English to make sure that I am not repeating myself and answering the member's question directly. I am here in Calgary. I will not leave. I don't intend to leave until we have an agreement. I am dealing with both parties. I am involved. We have an excellent federal mediation and conciliation service. They are at the table with the parties, and I am optimistic with people at the table and not leaving that we will reach the deal that Canadians demand and want as soon as possible. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Canadians were mandated for vaccines and vaccine passports and to stay at home. Canadians have complied, and our fragile healthcare system has survived. The entire world and 10 provinces in Canada have reopening plans. Mr. Speaker, federal mandates need to end, and Canadians need to know what the benchmark and the plan the government is using to end the mandates. Mr. Speaker, on what date will this government end federal mandates?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to answer this question. The member speaks about the date. April the 1st is when there will be no need for a pre-entrance rapid or antigen or molecular test entering into Canada. While we do, Mr. Speaker, thank Canadians for all the hard work that they've done over the last few months, including vaccinating themselves in large numbers, 87 million vaccines administered over the last year and a half. While we do that, we're going to work very hard, Mr. Speaker, to keep protecting the health and safety of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Chemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the province of Ontario is putting an end today to a series of temporary measures to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Canadians can finally have confidence in their future and go back to a normal life. If the provinces and other G7 countries have come to the same conclusion, what is this Liberal government waiting for to announce the end of the federal mandates? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. 1,600 deaths. That is what vaccines prevented in recent months because of the mandates that were established by provinces and the federal government. So 1,600 people that are with us now that wouldn't have been if we did not have these vaccine requirements. We're also talking about billions, 4 billion in particular, in costs that we covered. And that's a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. But it's also what we spend to preserve the health and safety of Canadians.
Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, over the course of the past couple of weeks, every province in Canada have either completely ended their mandates or given a solid deadline for when these measures will end, including New Brunswick. Yet this government is still forging ahead with their overreaching and intrusive mandates. When will the federal government start trusting Canadians, stop dictating to them how to live their lives, and give the people a date to end the mandates?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 135,000. That's a number of people who in the United States died because they were insufficiently vaccinated compared to Canadians. Mr. Speaker, that would have been a tragedy if in Canada we would not have used that gift which science and scientists gave us a year and a half ago. We are extremely grateful to all the vaccinators and all the Canadians that did the right thing, which is to protect their health and the health of those they love.
That's being responsible.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, our government has developed several programs to support Black communities across the country, to develop the skills of community organizations, to help entrepreneurs finance their activities. In order to promote an inclusive economy, I have announced $25 million in support to 10 Black-led organizations. Can the Minister of Economic Development tell us about the impact of this assistance to Black communities in Canada? The Honourable Minister of Development. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, and I would also like to acknowledge his tremendous work on behalf of the citizens of his riding. Our government is working closely with Black business owners and organizations across Canada. For example, the new Black Entrepreneurship Program, and there's other centers that help migrant women and other Africans. In Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, our fund is destined to strengthen entrepreneurship for Black entrepreneurs and business owners across the country. We want them to support our recovery.
Albert Edmonton.
Canadians want to take back control of their lives, yet millions of Canadians are unable to travel freely within Canada, unable to get on a plane, unable to get on a train because of the Liberals' punitive and ineffective vaccine mandates. This infringement on mobility rights constitutes an outlier among democracies. So, on what date will the Liberals join the rest of the democracies of this world and lift these mandates?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the reason we're able to lift these mandates is that we have in Canada one of the highest rates of vaccination in the world. We have in Canada about 85% who have had a first dose, 81% 2 dose, almost 60% a third dose. That's the reason for which we are able to lift these restrictions. 400,000 people, Mr. Speaker. That would have been the number of people dying in Canada over 2021 in the absence of public health measures and vaccination.
The honourable member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
This past weekend, I spoke to hundreds of constituents from Peterborough-Kawartha. Hundreds who are scared and afraid because they can't afford to buy food, pay for rent, or put gas in their car. People are suffering from anxiety, depression, and addiction because they can't manage the stress of making ends meet. The carbon tax hike on April 1st could see an increase of 12 cents a litre at the pumps. Canadians cannot take any more. How can this Liberal government say they have Canadians' backs? When will this government give my constituents and all Canadians hope and drop the carbon tax scheduled for April 1st?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for a question. Our government put a price on carbon pollution to ensure clean air, fewer emissions, and more money in people's pocket. As the carbon price increases, this payment also increases, leaving the majority of Canadians with more money in their pockets, Mr. Speakers. While Conservatives want to take us backwards to a time when it was free to pollute, our government will continue to move forward with practical and affordable solutions for Canadians to cut pollution and create good jobs.
The honourable member for Desanet, Ms. Nippy, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, Northern Saskatchewan, every product on every shelf has a significant freight cost. Transport companies I met with last week have been forced to raise their fuel surcharges just to survive. That increase must be passed on, and the cycle of inflation spirals out of control. Life gets more expensive every single day. The government ignores this fact, but my constituents do not have that luxury. Mr. Speaker, what is the Prime Minister's plan for rising fuel prices? Will he, at the very least, cancel the scheduled increase to the carbon tax on April 1st?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we absolutely understand that inflation and affordability are pressing challenges for Canadians. We also know that this is a global phenomenon, not a made-in-Canada problem. I want to ensure Canadians that we're working hard to make life more affordable and remind the opposition benches that 8 out of $10 that sustained Canadians during the global pandemic came from the federal government. We are committed to addressing housing affordability. We will continue to pursue childcare. We will continue to increase CCB. On this side of the House, we're focused on affordability.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the Liberal Auto Caucus, I am well aware that Canada has long been considered a global leader in the auto sector. As this sector transitions towards a greener and zero-emissions future, we know that Canada has every tool needed to be a world leader in EVs and electric batteries, skilled workers, critical minerals, clean and renewable energy, a strong innovation ecosystem, and an integrated North American supply chain. Could the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry kindly update this House on how the government is securing good, well-paying jobs in the auto sector by making major investments to support the transformation of Canada's automotive manufacturing sector towards electrification? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Vaughan Woodbridge for his excellent question and his great leadership, Mr. Speaker. You can see the passion even on the other side of the bench, Mr. Speaker. It's been an exciting week, so I understand why they applaud in the auto sector, with our government securing major investment that will see the auto industry in this country thrive for decades, Mr. Speaker. Last week we saw Honda making a $1.4 billion investment in the Alliston plant in Ontario. And that, Mr. Speaker, builds another investment from BSF and GM POSCO, and there's more to come, Mr. Speaker. Stay tuned.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, over 3 million people have now fled the violence in Ukraine. Civilians are being bombed in their homes and even in hospitals. They are desperate for support. Economic sanctions are a strong tool we have to force Putin to stop committing war crimes. However, the sanctions announced by this government won't have the desired effect if they are not properly enforced. Will the minister commit to the NDP ask for ownership of assets to be made public and tell Canadians how many Russian assets have been frozen since the most recent invasion of Ukraine?
Yes.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the member for that question, because the reality is this is an egregious invasion by Russia into Ukraine, and we are using every economic tool that we can to ensure that we punish and suffocate Russia. So over 500 individuals and entities have been sanctioned just in the last 3 weeks. We continue to do that. The systems are in place to make sure that we follow through on every one of those sanctions, and we will continue to do everything to ensure that Russia is suffocated while we continue to support Ukraine in all its efforts. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think the minister answered my colleague's question earlier, so I'd like to try again. Following decades of underinvestment in Via Rail, last week the federal government began to solicit the private sector to not only co-develop, but to operate and maintain high-frequency rail in the Quebec City-Windsor corridor. We know that privatization is short-sighted. We know it puts public money towards corporate profits and jeopardizes good jobs. Will the Minister of Transport reconsider and assure this House that Via Rail is on the verge of being privatized?
Yes. The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Speaker, let me be very clear. Our government is not privatizing Via. Let me also be very clear. This is the largest infrastructure project in Canada's history, and we are inviting all potential partners to help us do it right. For generations, governments have talked about this type of project. Our government is delivering for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. This is good news for passengers. This is good news for climate change. This is good news for jobs. And this is the way we build nations, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you for a great question period. Very lively, very attentive. That's all the time we have left. The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's been discussions among the party, and I hope that if you ask, you'll seek unanimous consent for the following motion: that the House denounce foreign influence and Hollywood actors who unfairly target and misrepresent Canada's energy sector, including the position of many elected leaders from Indigenous communities who support resource development projects, particularly at a time when efforts should be taken to displace Russian energy in Europe with clean Canadian energy.
All those opposed to the Honourable Member moving the motion, please say nay. I have a point of order from the Honourable Member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
I would like to remind, Mr. Speaker, perhaps you could help me with this, the Honourable House Leader for the Conservative Party. When a member in this place, and he's not the first person to do this, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, puts it forward, there have been consultations among the parties, and if you seek it, you will find they have to at least have talked to the parties.
Order. That is something I'm sure that the members can come up with a solution for. Points of order, the Honourable Member for Mission, Mascui, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, earlier in question period, the Minister for Housing said that there was no mention of affordable housing in the Conservative platform. I'd like to seek unanimous consent to table that platform and outline that we had a plan for Indigenous housing.
Does the member have leave to table that document? Another point of order from the member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, point of order arising at our question period. The Parliamentary Secretary for Global Affairs was misleading the House regarding stating cuts going back to 6 years by the Conservative government. I'd like to table to the House a Library of Parliament report called Operation Expenditures and Authorities covering from 2000 to 2021, showing actually during the Harper years, the highest amount adjusted for inflation was during the Harper years more than it is being spent now.
Does the member have leave to table the document? There you go. Shot down on all of them. Any more? Okay. It being 3:13, pursuant to order made on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion by Mr. Chong relating to the business of supply. Call in the members. The question is the following one. Mr. Chong, seconded by Mr. McLean, move that the House, A, condemn President Vladimir Putin, can I dispense? And the Russian Federation for their unprovoked illegal attack and invasion of Ukraine. B, stand with Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, and the Canadians in the Ukrainian community. And C, call on the Government of Canada to undertake measures to ensure new natural gas pipelines can be approved and built to Atlantic tidewater, recognizing energy as a vital Canadian and European defense and security, allowing Canadian natural gas to displace Russian natural gas in Europe, and being consistent with environmental goals in the transition of non-emitting sources of energy.